If you're tired of feeling stuck in your guitar playing and you want to take your skills to the next level, then stay tuned because in this video, I'm going to share with you 6 practice tips that are going to instantly get you on the right track. So grab your guitar and let's get started. Hi, my name is Stine from guitar-zoom.com. Thank you so much for joining me. In this video, we're going to discuss 6 different tips that I think are going to really help you in reorganizing the way that you think about your guitar practice. So do me a favor, like, share, comment, and certainly subscribe to the channel so you're always ready when I get a new video out, all right? So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so tip number 1, technique development. It's very important that you understand the things that are holding you back from a technical standpoint. Maybe it's your picking, maybe it's switching chords back and forth, maybe it's alternate picking, maybe it's sweeping. The thing you have to understand about your technical practice is that you don't want to get overwhelmed with too many things. The most important thing is thinking about where you are in your practice, where you are in your studies, and your abilities, and then start defining some things that are right outside the abilities that you already have. The one problem that I always encounter with players is that when they're trying to learn, they just have 1,000 things that they're thinking about all the time, and they're trying to practice all these different things. And I understand, we want to learn how to do all kinds of different things, and that's important. But what we need to do is really think about the things that are most important and most accessible from where we stand right now as a player. So with technical practice, what I want you to think about is, for instance, if you haven't yet developed a really strong down picking technique, trying to learn how to sweep pick probably isn't going to do you much good until you fully develop that down picking. But you could move from down picking maybe to alternate picking, right? And again, if you haven't really developed down picking, trying to talk about alternate picking is still going to slack a little bit until you develop that. So you have to become real about what it is that you're trying to do, why it is that you're doing it, and how you want to approach this. So instead of having 20 things to think about on a daily basis that you want to practice, and of course this is all relative to how much time you have to practice anyway, start thinking about what you need most for your development as a player. Number 2 is creative practice, and this is really important, and so often players forget about this. They spend so much time trying to develop their technical ability that they forget that we as guitar players need to improvise. We need to be able to be creative. So it's not enough just to practice with a metronome and practice your scales and things like that, your picking abilities, those sorts of things, but also spend time practicing creative elements. Your ability to take all of the things that you're learning and use them in a creative way. Maybe you're using backing tracks or making your own jam tracks or whatever it is it might be, and spend real quality time thinking about how to play musically. Not just all these thoughts that you have in your head as a guitar player, which I always call the guitar player brain, but learning to turn that off and see how much of that technical practice has become automated in your playing. Can you think about phrasing? Can you think about dynamics? Can you think about all of these different things that make music sound like music and utilize those technical aspects of your playing, licks or, again, whatever it is you might be doing in a real life situation when you're actually jamming over something? That's creative practice, and it's very important that you spend quality time with that. All right, tip number 3, very, very important, is fretboard study. So often people don't really have control of their fretboard when it comes to learning scales. They might learn a position on the guitar or something like that, or maybe, they know one and they kind of know another one or whatever it might be. You want to really learn how to fully develop and have mastery over your movement on your fretboard, because there's so many really great things that you can learn to do. Again, we understand that as we move across the fretboard, we're not playing any new notes. We're playing the same notes of the scale that we started with. But it's the motion. If you think about it, it's almost like driving a vehicle. It's Sunday, and you could be driving somewhere very quick because you don't have a lot of time. Or you could be taking a Sunday afternoon drive because it's really nice outside and you just want to hang out and go for a drive. The fretboard is very much like that. We can think about our approach very differently. But if we're limited by what we can see, then we can't approach those things. And so for you as a player, that doesn't mean that you just have to spend 6 months doing nothing but fretboard study. Again, this is what this whole video is about. You need technical study. You need creative practice study. But you need to develop that fretboard and spend more time really getting to know the scale or scales that you're trying to learn on that fretboard, being able to see them, knowing what notes you're looking for. Maybe you're playing over a certain chord, and the notes in that chord, which we call a triad, for instance. where those notes might be on the fretboard. You don't have to overwhelm yourself with this, but you do need to start thinking about it and implement that into a practice routine. All right, tip number 4, which I think is really important, is practice like you have deadlines. If all of a sudden you were playing in a band, and maybe you already do, but if you were playing in a band and today is Wednesday and by next Saturday you have to learn 30 songs, you have a deadline. And all of a sudden your practice routine is going to take a major shift because there's a job to do. And if you don't do it well, you're probably not going to consider, continue being in that band. So even if you don't have real world deadlines, you can set up mock deadlines for yourself and say, okay, by next Sunday, I'm going to have this song written. Or by next Sunday, I'm going to be able to jam comfortably over this track, or I'm going to start learning a new position on the fretboard, or whatever it might be. You're setting up practice with intention. Okay? With those deadlines, you're telling yourself, I need to have this done, as opposed to, well, maybe I'll get it done next week. I don't know. And maybe you even set up real deadlines. Maybe you do join a band. Maybe you start playing in church. Maybe you start playing with some friends. I mean, whatever it might be. Maybe you are going to post a video online somewhere, and so you need to practice and get it ready. But setting up those deadlines will make all of these things that you're practicing much more real and get you going faster and force you to really try and do a better job of getting it done. All right, tip number 5, record yourself playing if at all possible. It doesn't need to be a super high quality recording. If you don't know how to do that, you might just use your mobile device, whatever it is. It doesn't make any difference. The point is if you can go back and listen to yourself, oftentimes you can figure out what's working and what's not working in your playing. For years I used to record myself and I really didn't like what I was hearing. And it finally got to a point where I could listen to myself and go, all right, that's not bad. And it takes a while to get to that point. But if you're never listening to yourself play, you can't really critique yourself on what is working and what isn't working. All right, tip number 6, optimize your practice routine using everything that we've just talked about. What I find oftentimes with players is that it's easier to set up a weekly practice routine than a daily practice routine. Because, for instance, maybe Monday and Wednesday and Friday, you're going to focus on technique because that's really important to you. But then Tuesdays and Saturdays, for instance, maybe those are creative days for you. So you're really going to try and focus on bringing all of the technical aspects that you're learning, all of the influx of information, licks and scales and whatever it might be, into the creative space to see how things are actually working. And then maybe on Thursdays, that is your fretboard study day, or Thursdays and Sundays, or whatever it is you might want to do. And that way you can really focus on certain elements, especially if you don't have a lot of time. If you're not practicing 3 hours a day, you're practicing 20 or 30 minutes a day or something like that. This is a really great way of approaching that because you can get all of these things done. Okay. If you stay on a steady routine, your technique isn't going to falter because on Tuesday you were doing creative, because you're still using technique. You're just not focusing on it like you are on Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays, for instance, okay? So setting up a practice routine, optimizing that practice routine, and really thinking about how maybe a weekly schedule might work better for you. And the last thing I want to say about that that's really important is, let's say it's Tuesday and that's normally your creative day, which is important to do. But maybe for some reason on that day, you're having a killer technical day. Your practice is just working. I always tell people it's very important to go with it. Like if that's working for you, don't feel guilty because it was supposed to be a creative practice day. If technique is working for you that day, just go with it. If Tuesday is, for whatever reason, it's just wound up being a really great day to work on that, maybe Wednesday will wind up being a creative practice day. That's perfectly fine. All right, and a bonus tip, find a guitar teacher or a mentor that can help you really organize where you are in your playing, what you're looking for, what you're missing, what you're struggling with, and what you're good at. So often we just don't spend enough time realizing or recognizing what it is that we're really good at already because we're so busy thinking about the things that we can't do. So finding somebody that can help you really organize yourself, letting you know that, over at guitarzoom.com, that's exactly what we do. I would love for you to be a part of guitarzoom.com. You can always check it out and see if it's something that you're interested in. So anyway, thank you so much. Please do me a favor, like, share, comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and see if that helps you a little bit. And please subscribe to the channel. It would be awesome if you could do that. So take care, stay positive, and I'll talk to you soon.